All right, so ready to dive into the world of primary school teaching. We've got these RoleCatcher resources, and wow, there's a lot to unpack about what it takes to really succeed in this career.
Yeah, it's really interesting how often people underestimate what all goes into it. It's not just about the actual teaching, like the reading and writing and arithmetic.
Right. It's so much more than that.
It is. It's about understanding how kids learn best and creating an environment where they can really thrive.
And it really struck me when we were going through this RoleCatcher report was how much emphasis they put on learning strategies and monitoring as crucial skills.
Absolutely.
I mean, those were ranked even higher than things like instructional software, which I thought was really interesting. So why is that? Why are those skills so critical in a primary school setting?
Well, you have to remember that every student is different. What works for one might not work for another at all.
Right.
So learning strategies is really about having that toolbox of different approaches. Visual aids, hands-on activities, storytelling, you name it, and being able to adapt those strategies to different learning styles and different kids.
So it's kind of like you're a learning detective.
Exactly.
They're constantly observing and analyzing and adjusting your approach based on what you see.
Exactly. You've got to be able to read those subtle cues. Is a student struggling silently? Are they afraid to ask for help? Or maybe they don't even realize they're lost. You've got to be able to pick up on those things. And that's where monitoring comes in. It's not just about seeing who's paying attention. It's about really understanding how each student is processing the information.
And it's really interesting when you look at the RoleCatcher report. Those two skills, learning strategies and monitoring, they have a really high percentage, like 64% and 61%.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you how important they are. They're
Yeah.
not just like nice to haves, they're really essential skills for any primary school teacher.
And, speaking of essential skills, we can't forget about the human element here. RoleCatcher also highlights social perceptiveness as being really important. So what role does that play when you're dealing with, a classroom full of 6-year-olds?
Well, imagine this. You're in the middle of a lesson and you notice one of your students is unusually quiet. Now, a teacher with high social perceptiveness might pick up on their body language, maybe a change in their demeanor, and realize something's off. Maybe they're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe something happened at home, or maybe they just need a little extra encouragement that day. And being able to read those unspoken cues and respond with empathy can make a world of difference for that student.
Absolutely.
It can really make or break their day and their overall learning experience.
So it's not just about teaching the curriculum.
Right.
It's about creating this supportive and emotionally intelligent environment where kids feel safe and understood.
That's right. And that takes a special kind of awareness and sensitivity, which is why I think social perceptiveness ranks so highly on those essential skills for primary school teachers.
Okay, so we've established that being a primary school teacher requires a really diverse skill set. It's demanding. But for someone considering this career path, what's the job market actually look like? I mean, is there a demand for these everyday heroes?
I'm happy to say yes, there is. RoleCatcher actually projects a 4% growth rate in teaching positions from 2019 to 2029.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And when you look at it more closely, primary school teachers are in particularly high demand.
So why is that? Why the increased demand in primary education specifically?
Well, it's a few things, really. First of all, we're seeing a growing student population in many areas, which naturally means we need more teachers.
Makes sense.
And at the same time, we have a lot of teachers who are nearing retirement age.
Right.
So that's creating even more openings for new teachers to come in. But it's not just about filling empty classrooms.
So what else is driving this demand then?
There's a growing understanding of just how important those early years are in a child's development.
Right.
Studies have shown that the foundation that's laid in those early years has a huge impact on a child's lifelong learning and social skills and their well-being.
Absolutely.
So there's more emphasis on early childhood education in general, and that means a greater need for qualified teachers.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let's be real for a second.
Sure.
RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from the challenges of this career either.
Yeah.
And when you look at the cons section, you see things like high levels of stress and dealing with difficult parents.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those.
Of course. And it's important to be upfront about that. Being a primary school teacher is incredibly rewarding, but it's not always easy. It's a demanding job, You're constantly on, you're managing a classroom, you're adapting to different needs, you're keeping those energy levels up, and that can definitely be draining.
And then you've got that whole other dynamic of working with parents.
Exactly. You're not just teaching kids, you're communicating with parents, you're addressing their concerns, you're navigating different perspectives on education, and sometimes that means dealing with difficult situations that require a lot of patience, empathy, and communication skills.
It's a good reminder that being a teacher isn't just a 9 to 3 job.
Right. It often extends beyond the classroom walls.
Yeah. But even with those challenges, RoleCatcher still highlights those really rewarding aspects of the career.
Oh, absolutely.
There's that classic saying, the best teachers are those who show you where to look but don't tell you what to see.
I love that quote. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about
Yeah.
nurturing young minds and fostering their curiosity and opening up these new worlds for them to explore.
Yeah. And you might be that one person who ignites a lifelong love of reading, or sparks a passion for science, or
Yeah.
helps a child discover a hidden talent.
Exactly.
And those aha moments, that joy of learning, that's really what makes it all worthwhile.
It really does.
And speaking of aha moments, let's talk about how technology is changing the game in education. RoleCatcher really dives into this in the technology advances section.
It really is an exciting time to be a teacher.
Yeah.
We've got so many amazing tools now to make learning more engaging and personalized. I mean, imagine bringing dinosaurs to life with augmented reality. Oh, wow. Or taking a virtual field trip to the Amazon rainforest right from the classroom.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But with all this technology, how do teachers make sure they're not just facilitators, but active guides in the learning process?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because technology is just a tool.
Right.
It's a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool. It's up to the teacher to set the stage and guide the exploration and help students make those connections.
Right. So it's about striking that balance.
Exactly. We want to leverage technology and all the amazing things it can do, but we don't want to lose sight of that human element that makes education so meaningful.
Okay, so let's say you're sold on this career path. You're ready to inspire some young minds. RoleCatcher has a whole section on interview prep. And there are a couple of questions there that I thought were really interesting. So let's dive into those. One that I think is a classic for a reason is, how do you handle challenging student behavior?
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
It is a big one, and I think it's important to talk about because it's one thing to talk about inspiring young minds, but it's another thing entirely to manage a classroom where, let's be honest, kids aren't always on their best behavior.
That's the reality of it.
So what are interviewers looking for when they ask that question?
Well, they want to see that you can think on your feet and that you have some strategies in your back pocket for dealing with disruptions effectively, but also that you can do it while maintaining a positive and respectful environment for everyone.
Right.
It's about showing that you're calm and you're a problem solver and that you're committed to creating a safe and inclusive space for all learners.
And having a lot of patience probably doesn't hurt.
Patience is key, absolutely. Another one that I thought was really insightful was, how do you differentiate your teaching for English language learners?
That's such an important question.
Yeah.
Because, we want to create a diverse and inclusive classroom, but that also comes with its own set of complexities.
For sure. And it's about recognizing that not all students are starting from the same place. Some might need extra support with language, and that question really gets at your awareness of that and how you create a learning environment where every student has the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, it's about making sure every student feels seen and heard and supported.
Right.
So let's say you've aced the interview. You're in the classroom, you're loving it.
Rewarding.
You're navigating those challenges. Where can this career take you in the long run?
Well, RoleCatcher actually highlights some really interesting career progression paths, and it's not always about becoming a principal or a head teacher.
Right. What else is there?
Well, one example is an instructional coach.
Instructional coach, okay.
Yeah, so they work with other teachers, providing guidance on things like pedagogy, classroom management, curriculum development.
So it's like being a mentor.
Exactly. A mentor, a guide, someone who shares their wisdom and best practices.
I love that. A multiplier effect.
Exactly. And it's a great option for teachers who are passionate about supporting their colleagues and want to make a bigger impact on the school community as a whole.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher also mentioned pursuing advanced degrees. If you're looking to specialize in something.
Right. And that opens up a lot of doors. You could specialize in early childhood development or special education or educational leadership. There are so many different paths you can take.
Wow. So it really just depends on what you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What lights you up? Where do you want to make the biggest difference?
Okay, so we've talked about the skills, the demands, the rewards, the tech. Let's bring this all together now.
Yeah, let's get real world here.
Exactly. RoleCatcher actually provides this really interesting sample profile of an entry-level primary school teacher. So let's step into their shoes for a moment.
Okay, let's do it.
What does a typical day look like for a primary school teacher?
Man, the alarm goes off, it's early, gotta get to school, get that coffee going.
Right, gotta have that coffee.
Essential. And then the real work begins. You're reviewing those lesson plans, gathering your materials, setting up engaging activities.
So it's more than just writing on the board.
Oh, yeah, much more. You might be prepping for a science experiment or a creative art project.
Wow.
It's all about creating that welcoming space that's going to spark the kids' curiosity from the moment they walk in. And then the bell rings.
Showtime.
Showtime. And it's a whirlwind from there.
So what does that look like? What's going on in the classroom?
You're leading lessons, you're facilitating discussions, you're providing that one-on-one support for students who might be struggling.
Right.
And you're trying to keep that positive energy up the whole time. It's a lot.
It sounds both exhausting and exhilarating at the same time.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's definitely demanding. But those moments when a student finally grasps a concept, when you see that light bulb go off.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Those little victories.
Exactly. And even when that last bell rings, a teacher's work is never really done.
Right.
There's always something. Papers to grade, lesson plans to tweak, meetings to attend.
It's more than just a job.
It really is. For those who are truly passionate about it, it's a calling. And speaking of different paths, I know earlier you had mentioned that RoleCatcher report listed some alternative titles.
Oh, yeah.
Like Steiner school teacher stood out to me.
Yeah, that one definitely piqued my curiosity, too.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Steiner education, it's also sometimes called Waldorf education.
All right.
And it's got a very unique approach. It's all about hands-on learning and creativity and imagination.
Yeah, you see things like woodworking and gardening and even puppetry as part of the curriculum.
It's so cool to see how many different approaches to education are out there.
It is. It really speaks to the diversity of the field as a whole.
Definitely.
Mm.
And I think for anyone considering this career path, it's exciting to know that there are so many different ways to make it your own.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right fit for you.
Exactly. So as we wrap things up here, I want to bring it back to our listeners.
Yes.
What resonated with you the most today?
What are you taking away from this deep dive?
As you're considering a career in education, what kind of learning environment do you envision creating for your future students?
I love that. What does that inspiring learning environment that RoleCatcher talks about really look like to you?
Because it's not just about teaching kids their ABCs and 123s. It's about creating a space where they can explore and discover and grow, a place where they feel supported and valued.
Well said. And remember, there's no one right way to do it.
Right.
Every teacher brings their own unique strengths and passions to the classroom.
Exactly. Find what lights you up. Find what makes you excited to teach. And who knows, you might just spark a lifelong love of learning in a future artist or scientist or maybe even a future teacher.
Now, that would be amazing.